We are so excited at Your Life Live It because I have got a guest that I am really thrilled to be interviewing, and that is Tony Yuile, all the way from Wellington in New Zealand. And I'm interviewing Tony from my place in Portugal. Although when he speaks, you'll realise he's not a Kiwi, he's actually a fellow Brit. And I'm excited to interview Tony because he's got an absolute wealth of not only knowledge, but experience. He is very, very qualified in the world of hypnotherapy. So if you're listening and going, what is hypnosis? I want to know more about it. Then I can guarantee this interview is going to give you so much information, knowledge, wisdom, and you'll definitely know what hypnosis is not. And that is certainly not dancing around like a chicken, right, Tony? For sure.
Correct.
Tony has been with Your Life Live It, part of our team for the last 12 years, which is a long time, and offered a great deal of wisdom to not only his fellow coaches and hypnotherapists, but also to his client base. So I want to really invite Tony to share a lot of information with us. So Tony, first of all, why don't you just share with us like your background? What is it that you're qualified in? You know, what is it that's important for people to know about Tony Yuile, the hypnotherapist, neural coder?
Right. Okay. Well, I am still a chartered accountant. There's a part of me that doesn't want to give up my membership of the institute. I did accounting for 20 years, and I did risk management for 10 years. And then the turning point for me was I changed jobs. I went to another organization, and it soon turned out that was a mistake because it was a bad boss, a job that wasn't what was on the job description. And everybody in the team was stressed. And then one day the boss said, "Oh, I'm going to restructure, and you're all in the mix." And so consciously, I was very happy about that because I was going to get away from this bad boss, this job I didn't like, and I was going to get some redundancy. So I had this conscious thing where every day was a happy day. And then I got this pain in the side shortly after being told. Went to the doctor a couple of times. They sent me for some scans because eventually it got to the point, where I was catastrophizing. They're thinking I had cancer or an ulcer or something. They couldn't find anything. And I walked out the door, and still with this pain. The doctor gave me some pills, but I didn't take them because I'm not a pill popper. So I suffered with this pain. And then my old boss rang me up about two or so weeks after leaving and said, "Oh, I've got a project going. Do you want to come and help us with that?" And I went to bed that night, and I got up the next morning, and this pain's gone. Just gone like that. And I thought, well, what the hell's going on there? Like, what's that about? And fortuitously for me, my friend Elaine, who lives across the road, had done an NLP, neuro-linguistic programming course 6 months earlier. And she started to tell me when I was telling her this story, it's about, what was going on inside my head. I'd been telling myself that this was the end. Nobody would ever employ me again. I'd never get another job, da-da-da-da. And because I wasn't listening to this message, then, my body sent me a signal, listen. And I wasn't listening, so the pain kept ramping up. And honestly, God, I looked at her and I thought, well, this is woo-woo, isn't it? Because I'm Mr. Accountant. And, but the fortunate thing for me is she lives across the road. We see her every weekend for dinner out at their house or ours. So she kept going on about this course that was coming up in 6 months' time with Dr. Richard Bolstad. And I should really go along. It'd be a life-changing thing for me, which, in hindsight, it did turn out to be. So, because I was contracting, I was able to go and do Richard's course, and it was quite a commitment. It's 19 days. And then, in that first week, we did the values elicitation, what's important to you. And that's when I had this big identity shift, because following that exercise, I realized I should never have been an accountant in the first place, and I should have been doing this. So that took a bit of processing for me to get my head around, after being sort of an accountant risk manager for 30 years. And in the second part of that course, we did 2 days of hypnotherapy. And I was just blown away by the fact that you could actually say a few words to somebody and change their life. So I finished that course, and that first course is sort of about working on yourself, really. So I went away and worked on myself and found that these techniques do work. But at the same time, I enrolled at the New Zealand School of Hypnotherapy to learn hypnotherapy, which is a 12-month course. And then when I finished that, I went back and did the second part of NLP, which teaches you how to be an NLP coach, work with other people, and closed the door on my accounting career overnight, and just opened the doors to being a hypnotherapist / coach. And that's what I've been doing, for the last 12 years. And it's the best thing I ever did, to be honest.
And
Yeah,
you also teach as well, don't you now? So you're teaching.
I do.
Whereabouts are you teaching?
Yeah. So it's quite strange, isn't it? So as I say, I started my training at the New Zealand School of Hypnotherapy, and now I'm teaching the next generation of hypnotherapists at the New Zealand School of Professional Hypnotherapy. So that's great. I also do some training for adults at the local adult education centre. So I teach self-hypnosis there, and life purpose and values is another workshop I do. So I try and get the word out there as much as I can about, hypnotherapy, and it being probably the most underrated self-development tool that there is. And we should all be engaging in some hypnosis, whether self-hypnosis or with a hypnotist, in order to improve ourselves and our lives. Yeah.
And I think coming from a former accountant, I think that just shows how powerful hypnotherapy is, because, you definitely be coming with a skeptical mind. I can't see it. I can't, there's no tangibility around it. I mean, numbers don't lie. They're very factual. So I think for you to have come from that place and then climb into this world of, well, I can just say a few things to somebody and their life can change. That's even more testament to the power of hypnotherapy. And I think the fact you're teaching as well is credit to you, because you've really climbed into your passion, which is superb. So my question to you is, who is it that you're helping? Like, what do you find is your speciality?
Right. So because it was stress that sort of pushed me into this, for the majority of the last 12 years, and still, the focus has been on stress and anxiety and depression and trauma. And so that was the main focus for sort of 10 years. And then about 3 years ago, one of my family members has a functional disorder. Well, had a gastro disorder. It's not functional one. And I was looking online to see if there's any research on how hypnosis could help with that. And I came across the fact that there's 40 years of research for hypnosis for irritable bowel syndrome, which is a functional gastro disorder. And it kind of blew me away. The first thing that blew me away was that, here's 40 years of research about hypnosis, which is randomized control trials. So, you can rely on them. And the fact is, hypnosis is a process, basically. And so all they're doing is applying the same process that every other hypnotherapist in the world is applying, but they're giving different suggestions. And so for me, that was kind of, well, there's evidence that hypnosis works, it's effective. And it's effective for 75 to 85% of people get significant results from it. So that was the first thing that blew me away, was this evidence, because I guess being an ex-accountant, I'm very much an evidence-based kind of guy. And I like, finding that there is support for the stuff that we're doing. And then I started to read about IBS, and discovered that, between 10-15% of the world's population have suffered with this, and that's only people who are diagnosed. And for some people, it's completely disabling. They can't leave home. Their lives are just destroyed, basically. And there was nobody out there, particularly not in New Zealand anyway, helping them other than doctors with medication and stuff. So I thought, well, I've got to do something about this. And so I looked into it, and so shifted track, really. But the other work that I do comes into play there, because with most of the people I've worked with, there's been some underlying trauma, some event that's triggered this off, either a big T, as we say in the trade, or a small T. And so that trauma sort of knowledge that I've got comes in there. And then stress and anxiety, are produced by having this disorder, as well as perhaps other things that are maintaining it. So that I can bring that knowledge that I have of stress and anxiety into the work I do too. So it all kind of merged together. And yeah, it's just amazing the results you can get. Because being a functional disorder, what that means is that the mind and the body aren't communicating properly with each other. In this case, the gut and the brain aren't communicating properly. And so through the medium of hypnosis and suggestions and metaphors and imagery, we can reconnect, fix that miscommunication, and by so doing, bring relief to people.
And so that's a high stat, isn't it? 70 between, what was the percentage between 70?
Yeah, between 75 and 85%. And the other thing that struck me was, because when I was doing some research in it, I said that the world sort of prevalence of this is between 10 and 15, depending on what country you're in. And I saw some statistics from a couple of years back that said New Zealand was 17%. For some reason, we're right, we're right up there at the top of people that have this disorder.
And as you say, Tony, that's only people that have been diagnosed, right? I mean, there's a lot of, because of its nature, because of the way that IBS displays in somebody's system, it could be potentially an embarrassing thing, and they don't want to go and see a medical professional and have a formal diagnosis, and so they try and self-manage. But what you're saying is that the actual IBS problem in of itself creates anxiety for that person, because they're fearful that it's going to come on at any time, and it could be they're at a public engagement, or they're traveling in a vehicle with somebody, or they've got to fly somewhere. I can see how that would really impact somebody's life. And so, anyone that's listening that's either got a formal diagnosis or has self-diagnosed, it doesn't necessarily need to be that you show up to Tony and say, I've got IBS. It could be, hey, look, these are the symptoms I'm suffering from, and is this something you can help me with? So it brings me on to my next question. When you're working with your clients that have got IBS, how long are they with you for, Tony? Is this something that goes on for like a year, or what's the length of time that you spend with a client generally?
I've done a lot of research into the other programs around the world, and the first program that kicked this off was Dr. Worrell at Manchester University Hospital. I think it was back in sort of the mid 1980s, and so he had a program where, in his case, people would come in for half an hour a week for about 12 weeks, and then in between times they'd have a recording that they had to go home and listen to. And so I sort of bore that in mind, and then I looked around what other people were doing, and they were doing a similar sort of thing. And so with my program, it's 5 sessions where you either see me online, or if you're in the Wellington area, you can come and see me in person. First one's 90 minutes because we have to sort of go through the paperwork, and I have to teach you some psychoeducation about how your gut works and so forth, because I'll be using words about parts of your gut that if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's going to go over your head kind of thing. So I need to sort of educate you how your digestive system works and what hypnosis is and isn't, that kind of stuff. And then they get some homework, some techniques to practice in between the sessions. So it goes session 1, leave a week, session 2, leave a week, session 3. Then we have 2 weeks between 3 and 4, 2 weeks between 4 and 5. 4 weeks between 4 and 5. And that gap, so there's 5 sessions. That gap is so that people can start to notice the change. If I compacted them all together within a week, then people would probably come back and say, well, I can't see any, I haven't had any benefits yet, Tony. The research tells us that most people would get notice some kind of benefit after four sessions. And so that's why I leave that 4-week gap between 4 and 5, because, that's when they're going to start to notice. And I want them to come back at 5 and go, by God, it's amazing. But I keep in touch with them along the way, because, I've got a client management system where they can chat with me at any time. So they get these techniques, because I'm about empowering people, it's about, and so I teach them these things, which basically are life skills. They're not just for use with irritable bowel syndrome or whatever. The techniques that you could use for anxiety, stress, or whatever, going out into the future, really, to calm the nervous system, etc. So they practice those. They also get a recording to listen to. So they get 8 recordings in my program, which is similar to sort of Dr. Worrell's program. And they have to listen to those for 100 days, give or take. And so I give them a listening schedule. And so, they get to mix them up after a while, because, they've got eight to listen to. But the idea there, is repetition. And they're all tailored to the person. So these aren't sort of standard recordings that you might get on an online or app or something like that, where they're just the same recordings for everybody. These are tailored to the person and so forth. And so, by listening to these, it helps to reinforce the work that we do in those sessions, as well as, build on that and introduce some new ideas and so forth. I listen to those for, I guess, 3 months, I suppose. Allow them a couple of days off here and there. So they go, and they're about 15 minutes, so they're not too onerous,
So it's a massive commitment, is it? It's 15.
No.
If I'm listening to this or watching this interview, or listening to the podcast, and I know somebody that's got IBS that I really care about, or maybe it's even me. Essentially, what we're saying is that this can be done online, and we're talking about 5 sessions with some empowerment and some learning. So I would learn, if it was me or my friend or partner, whoever it was I cared about, would learn about what's actually happening. So I'm getting educated around it. And then you would create bespoke hypnosis recordings for me to listen to. So it's in alignment with kind of who I am and what I enjoy, and, you know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then your particular, because whilst, it's, the criteria for the disorder, everybody's different, and so I guess the difference of working with someone like me is you're getting that, I guess, that tailored approach, and you're getting that relationship between the two of us, which again, science, the research tells us that, the therapeutic relationship is a powerful thing, which is why I should also mention, I guess, that before working with me, I have this 30-minute sort of consultation where the person over Zoom gets to meet me and I get to meet them, so they can decide for themselves by the end of that or after that whether I'm the right person to help them, because that therapeutic relationship is so important. And secondly, because this is hypnosis and I'm going to be talking, and as you mentioned earlier, I'm from England, so I've got this voice, or the sound of this voice, and I've tried to listen to hypnotherapy recordings of some famous hypnotherapists, and their voice is just great with me, and I can't listen to it. So if you're going to work with me, you have to like my voice, because you're going to be sat there with your eyes closed and I'm going to be talking to you, for 15, 20, 25 minutes or whatever. And so, that's an element that can't be overlooked. And so.
But if I'm brand new to hypnotherapy, which, I'm not, obviously, you and I share a passion for hypnosis, and absolutely believe in its power. However, if I'm listening and going, oh, hang on, I thought it was like, you're going to get me to dance around the stage like a chicken or eat an onion and think it's an apple. Just so we can kind of give the listeners or people watching the interview a flavor of what hypnosis is. How would you describe it to somebody that's never experienced it before, or maybe only seen like stage hypnotherapy?
Yeah. So I do this, because I want to normalize it for people, and I want to show people that it's something that everybody can experience. So one of the sort of metaphors or analogies that I use is that, they'll be coming in, they'll be sitting in a chair in my room, and at some point I'll ask them to close their eyes. And the reason we do that is just to shut out all the visual clutter, basically, so they can focus. So hypnosis is all about focusing. And so I say it's just like you're at home, you're in your favorite armchair, and you're listening to, a play on the radio, and you've got your eyes closed and you're fully engrossed in that play. And you're so engrossed in the play that when something dramatic happens, you jump. Or when something, emotional happens, you start to cry or whatever, and that's what all I'm be doing, with somebody in hypnosis. I've got them in a chair, I've got their eyes closed, and basically I'm talking to them. And at some point I will be telling them, a story of some kind, because we know that metaphors are very powerful. And that's it. They're fully aware, fully alert. They could open their eyes at any time. They could, not that many clients do, but sometimes they do. And the focus is on what they want to change. Yes. So we have a goal, which is, the overall goal in the case of IBS people is, to reduce the symptoms significantly. So that's our goal. So all of the suggestions and the ideas and so forth that I'll be providing to somebody are directed towards that, And I say to people, if you want me to, get you to dance like a chicken, then we can do that. But, you paid me, and you haven't paid me money to do that. You paid me, to help you get rid of your IBS symptoms, And the other thing I tell people, it's about a mindset. You've got to want to do this. You've got to be willing to do it. You've got to expect that it's going to work. And it's a collaborative process. It's not me doing something to you. I can't get inside of your head and sort of do the rewiring inside of your head. When I ask you, for example, to imagine a lemon, then my expectation is that you're doing your very best to imagine a lemon in whatever way that you can. Now, some people can see images, some people can't see images, but they can sense things. Whatever works for you. But if you're just sitting there thinking about, what's he going on about, talking about lemons? God, what am I going to have for my tea? Oh, I don't know. What am I doing tomorrow? Then nothing's going to happen, because you've got to focus on what I'm saying. And when we focus on things, I believe then that opens the door to learning. because our brain knows that whenever we focus on something, it must be important. And if it's important, then we better capture it for later, because it might be something we need to store. So by focusing the attention, we're opening the doors to learning. And then I'm giving back to people what they've told me they want. I'm just saying to you, you're more and more relief from IBS, which is what they want. I'm not telling them anything they don't want. I'm just telling them what they want. The doors to learning are open, and it goes in a lot more easily. And then because it's important, then when we do the sort of at night when we sleep and we sort of decide which memories we're going to keep and which ones we're going to throw away and experiences from the day, etc., then the brain goes, that stuff that we did with Tony was important. We're going to keep that. And then it becomes part of who you are. And then, you start to change. And that's kind of how it works. So it's very ordinary.
But what you're saying, Tony, then is really everybody can benefit from hypnosis. What they need to do when they're being hypnotized by you or anybody else is they need to follow the instructions given by the hypnotherapist and focus on that, not think about what they're going to be packing for the lunch tomorrow.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I was just training last weekend at the school, and one of the things I was emphasizing to the newbies was you could sort of break hypnosis down into two things when you're working with a hypnotist: instructions and suggestions. And so when I'm working with somebody, I'm going to give them some instructions. Will you please sit in this chair? Will you please close your eyes? Will you please take 3 deep breaths, etc. And I'm watching for the person to do that. And when they do that, then that's a green flag for me. And if for some reason they don't do something, then that's a red flag. There's no point me going ahead and giving them suggestions if they suddenly open their eyes when I've asked them to open their eyes. I need to explore why that is, because they might have some fear that I haven't addressed or anything. But once they start to follow the instructions, then I give suggestions, and that basically is what it's about. I give you some instructions to facilitate this learning experience, and then once you're in this learning state, then I give you some suggestions, and that's it. And then you emerge. You don't wake up because you haven't been asleep or anything. You just open your eyes when I ask you to open your eyes, and you go back to your daily life or the rest of the day or whatever's happening, but changed inside somehow. And that might not manifest immediately, because it takes time for our sort of brain to process some of this stuff. But over the course of a day or a day or a week or, a month, then you start to notice changes. So, one of the suggestions I gave towards the end of a session is that, you're going to notice the smallest changes. So suggesting for them to notice whatever they notice, that's even the smallest thing. Because once people start to notice that something's different, might be that they just spend a minute less on the toilet than they did yesterday, for example, then that's to build belief. Something's changed here. I'm not the same as I was yesterday. I've actually spent, the last 2 days, I've spent less time on the loo than I had previously. And so by noticing that, that's to build this virtual, positive cycle, upward spiral, that helps the whole process gain traction.
I think, obviously we know it's powerful, 75 to 85% success rate, pain-free, medication-free, and in as little as 3 months. For anyone that's got IBS and has had the debilitating effects of that, this must be like music to their ears. And, I would imagine through that half an hour consultation when you first get on a call with somebody on a Zoom call, as well as them making sure that they feel comfortable with Tony and, how Tony rolls, I would assume you're also just checking that the person is in the right place for you to be able to proceed and work with them. Because if they are kind of, a little bit like, go on then, hypnotize me, see if you can, they're probably not in the right place, and it probably would be a waste of their money and your time. So I would imagine that's a two-way analysis, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So it's for me to gauge whether this person's at the right place. We talk about threshold in the trade, I guess. But a person's got to be at threshold or just beyond. Where something's got to change in my life, and that's what I'm looking for. So in that consult and on my questionnaire, there's 2 things I ask. How much do you want to, out of 10? How much do you want to change? And I'm looking for a 10. Yeah, I'll accept a 7 or above. If it's below 7, then I've started to think, okay. And then the other one is, how committed are you?
Yeah.
Because, this is, as you say, 3 months, this isn't a quick fix, there's going to be some time commitment and effort and so forth. So again, out of 10, how committed are you? And again, I'm looking for, ideally a 10 or 7 or above. And if not, then, it's a bit, okay, maybe I'm not, maybe you're not at the right spot yet to do this work. Or, I've got to ask them a few more questions to explore why that is, like the classic, what would it take to get you to a 10? Then you say you're an 8 now. So what do you think do we need to change to get to a 10? And if they can't answer that question, then perhaps it's not the right time to do it.
I think Tony, we've obviously got a limited amount of time to interview, and I know that when you've spoken at our conferences and you've spoken about your passion for helping people with IBS, I know you could spend days on this subject because you've got a wealth of knowledge and lots of client stories and testimonials of success. And I think the main thing that I've taken away is the sheer success at 75-85%. And if somebody's, getting a 10, I'm 10 out of 10 wanting to change, Tony, and I'm 100% committed and showing up in that space and trusting you, then the reality is they're going to get the results. And, I would imagine for somebody that's maybe tried various different medications or not even been diagnosed, has, tried to self-diagnose and self-manage, 3 months is really not very much when they've been, debilitated by this particular syndrome. I've got a couple of friends I can remember back in the day when I worked for Lauder, and it was just so debilitating for them because they were flying internationally. So, just first and foremost, really embarrassing for people.
Yeah.
With this condition, because it's not like saying I've got a cold or I've got a fear of flying. It's, but it can develop into that because then they get frightened about getting on there. And the seatbelt signs go on, and now I can't go to the bathroom if my stomach starts to feel as though it's going to explode. So I really do think that what you're offering, considering it's pain-free, it's medication-free, and it's pretty, Tony, at the end of the day, I know you, I know you love doing improv. You're a comedian, really, and it's maybe not coming across because we're talking about a serious subject, but I know spending time with you would be an enormous amount of fun as well. So people are going to learn a lot about themselves, but also really enjoy the journey of getting to that place they want to, which is an outcome of, great health and freedom from this IBS problem. If you're wondering where you can find Tony, the links are below, and you can certainly check him out and take a look. And what I would encourage you to do, if you're listening to this and going, maybe I should do something about it, is take action, because he's a busy guy and he might have to waitlist you. So, just know that there is help there. Tony, is there anything that you want to add to the IBS piece, to the hypnotherapy piece, before I ask you my last super secret question?
Just picking up on something you said a few minutes ago, another reason, I guess, for working with a person as opposed to getting an app to help you. The apps are good, the app's good, but this is a complex problem. As you were saying, it can develop into anxiety, depression. There's a number of comorbidities that go alongside of this, and working with someone like me, we can address those as well as the IBS, because it's a bit like a jigsaw, and it may be that, with this particular person, I need to focus on stress most because that's the thing that's keeping it going. Or else with this person, I have to focus on pain, and pain relief is, hypnosis has been used for pain relief for 150 odd years, that kind of thing. So that's what you're getting when you work with somebody like me is you're getting, a strategic look, I guess, a holistic look at what's going on and where should we target that's going to be the best lever to pull. So I'll just leave it at that, I guess.
I think I'm just going to jump on the back of that, because there's one thing that you said that I've not shone a light on, and that is that you didn't just step into this and go, I'm going to create an IBS program. I know a lot about hypnotherapy. What I really like about how you developed this was you looked at what other successful people were doing. You looked at their programs, you climbed into it, and then you probably took elements of that worked really well, and then sort of with your expertise and your knowledge and your experience of working with people, particularly in hypnosis, developed your program, which, it is time. It takes a lot of time to research all that, Tony, and an investment as well to make sure that you're giving your client the very best that you can. I know that your intention, I've known you for 12 years. I know your intention is always about giving the client the best outcome they can, that you really care about the people that you work with. And, I can absolutely vouch, trust me, if you work with Tony, you're going to be in really, really good hands. So you'll find the links below.
Thank you.
My question, I always have a surprise question when I do my podcasts and my interviews. And so Tony doesn't know what's coming. But my question to you, Tony, is, in your life, what has been your biggest life lesson? Oh.
Biggest life lesson. Well, I think, I referred earlier to when I did that values elicitation exercise 12 years ago, and that, because what happens is, you're asked what's important, and we do it really quickly so that you're giving unconscious answers as opposed to conscious answers. And I literally, and I'm sat across, like we're sat across from each other here, albeit, person with this person. And this guy starts reading back what I'd said, and I thought he had somebody else's list. I did. I still get choked up now. I'm getting choked up as I say it. I was just sitting there thinking, where's he picked somebody else's list up? Where's this come from? And so it was, that was a real, ground moving shift for me. And then other little things, so we're neurocoders. I remember Richard at one point, this has always stuck with me, talking about, our internal voice. And when we got to that part of the course, and he goes, oh, you don't have to listen to that. You can do things with that. You can slow it down, speed it up, turn it into Donald Duck. It's just something that's created inside your head. You don't have to pay attention to it. It's not true. And again, I just sat there and thought, how come I don't know this? How come I've gone through two-thirds of my life and nobody's ever told me this? I've just been stressing out and getting anxious because of this bloody voice that's been going on in my head, and I don't need to listen to it. And I guess that's part of my passion for educating. We're not taught this stuff at school. And yet if we did, teach younger people this, there'd be a lot less, troubled, teenagers and adults in the world. So, I went onto that course as, a cynic, and I started day one as a cynic. And after 19 days, as my friend said, it was life-changing. So that would, and that nothing is impossible. One of the suggestions I give to people is I take them to kind of a special place inside their mind. And I say, this is a place where the seemingly impossible becomes possible. Because I've seen so many things over the last 12 years that have completely blown my mind about, how people change, that I truly believe that, with the power of the mind and a will and an intent, that anything is possible, really. So let's not limit ourselves to saying, we're stuck or whatever, just because somebody's told us we're stuck. We're not really. If you know how, then you can change. And that's, I guess, what I'm about, is teaching people how to change and to do it for themselves, so they have to come and see me or somebody else. Not a very good business model, but there you go. So it was,
Tony, I think, just sharing that, and I can see the emotion, as you shared that. What a change in career. What a change. And
have we got time? I'll tell you a little story. So I've opened the doors to become a hypnotist, and I'm walking down Lambton Quay, which is the main street here in Wellington CBD. And I'm passing guys that I used to work with who I know are stressed out and are in suits, and they would stop me. And they'd say, oh, I'm seeing you for a while, Tony. What are you doing now? And I would say, I'm a hypnotherapist. And they'd go, sorry, what did you say? And I go, I'm a hypnotherapist. Really? Oh, what are you doing that for? Oh, that's my job now. That's what I do. Oh, okay. Hey, look, I've got to get back to the office. It was lovely to meet you. And it got to the point where I came home one day and I said to my wife, Mary, I said, I've got to whip my phone out the next time I bump into somebody, because, just the look on their faces when I say this, I've just got to capture it, because just one of total disbelief. They must think I've had some midlife crisis or something, that, and I'll come back to the fold at some point. I never have, but yeah. So,
fantastic. Well, listen, Tony, it's been lovely spending time with you. Thank you for taking time out of your morning down there in Wellington. It's my evening here in Portugal. Please take a look at the links below. Reach out to Tony. Hop on that half an hour with him. It's not going to cost you a penny. And just see what Tony's got to say, and if you're right for this particular program. And if you feel Tony's right for you. And, you know, Tony, thank you. I love you being a part of our team, a part of our family. You offer a wealth of wisdom to each and every one of our neural coders that qualifies as a master hypnotherapist. I know you help a lot behind the scenes with your expertise and your wisdom. So I appreciate you. I want to thank you for holding space for us this evening. And as we like to say at Your Life, Live It, remember, it's your life.
Your life.
Live it.
Live it.
How about Tony?